you so much for coming out tonight and supporting CSM and the music department. We are so thrilled to finally be back together again, more or less. This semester was sort of hybrid for some classes. And there's been some rehearsal issues getting back. It's going to take a while to get back to our full-fledged routine of rehearsing and making music together again, but we're so grateful that we're finally able to share some music and play together after such a long time. So thank you so much for coming. So the music department decided we just got to get right back into it. So we've already had lots of concerts. CSM Music has produced 2 concerts already, a jazz concert last week, a symphonic band concert last week, and coming up later on this week, I think tomorrow is, what is tomorrow? Tomorrow is the Voice Department's choir concert, and Thursday night is the electronic music concert, and next week is the voice class concert. So they're all happening either here in this room, which is a room, or right next door in the theater. So check those out. And tonight it's our turn. So you might wonder who we are. We are just students, it looks like, according to the program. So before we get into that, who we are and what you're going to experience tonight, I wanted to begin tonight's concert with a sort of a musical introduction, a little palate cleanser maybe, if you want to think of it that way. It's sort of a musical welcome that touches on one of the themes for today's concert, which is 20th and 21st century experiences and explorations that composers went through in the 20th and 21st century up till today. Thinking about new ways of making music and new ways of listening to it and appreciating it and experiencing it. So we invite you to take the next, 6, 7 minutes? 6 or 7 minutes to just settle into your seats and allow the hectic and crazy chaos of our lives and the world to just sort of recede into the background a little bit. And just to spend some time enjoying the sounds of this piece, which is the first on your program, Philip Glass's Piano Etude No. 2. Thank you so much, Hasai. That was Hasai Matsura, one of the piano students in my piano literature course, which is this semester, Music 317, Music of the 20th Century and Beyond, Philip Glass, 21st century composer. So back to that was our little musical hello. To get you in the mood for some unusual music and some traditional music, and some music which is going to resonate with you, and maybe some other pieces will not. But the beautiful thing about the 20th and 21st century is that if you don't like something, just blink and the next thing you will adore. So it's a very eclectic time, and our piano students have been studying that. And coincidentally, this semester, my graduating seniors from CSM, the Music Harmony 4 class, is also studying 20th century music. So that's one of our main themes of this evening. It's not the only theme, but it's one of our main themes. So if you want to take a look at your program just to kind of figure out who we are and what this is about, you will see that it just says student concert on the outside, but if you look on the inside, there are many different classes that are going to be represented here tonight. I am Jane Jackson. I am the professor of all of the music majors. So I teach all the harmony courses, Harmony 1, 2, 3, and 4, and all the musicianship courses, musicianship 1, 2, 3, 4. And I also teach this piano literature class every semester. And this semester is the 20th century. Next semester we'll go back to the beginning of time, beginning of piano time, and start with the Baroque period again, and it'll be Baroque and classical and romantic in the 20th century. So it goes in a cycle like that. So we're going to sandwich in the pianists at the beginning of each of our halves of this evening. So before we get going into taking a little tour of the music majors through our Harmony 2 and Musicianship 2 and Harmony 4 and Musicianship 4, I would like to let the next performer, Richard Wright, to just say a few words about the piano class this semester before he starts his composition. And we're going to hear from Prokofiev and Poulenc, and then I'll be back with you.
Hi, I'm Richard. I've been asked to say a few words. I think it's because I'm the oldest person in the class. The alternative is my name was drawn out of the hat, so take your choice. The music period we're talking about here, as Jane said, was primarily the 20th century, a smidgen before, and some after. And the music, the audience is generally found this music. Am I on okay? Hold it.
Yeah, click it on and put it right next to your mouth.
Okay. This better? There you go. Okay. I'm not going to start over. That they found audiences found the music strange. I use strange rather than different or unusual because I wanted to include the prejudice against liking it. And so that's kind of the characteristic of the music as it came out. Maybe the overall perspective that we had from the course as we studied the music and played pieces was that over time the dissonances, and the unusual rhythms gradually became more interesting. And more. If they take this thing off, it'd be even better. But that what originally came out and were perceived as and disliked as dissonance and unusual rhythms, etc., became gradually more acceptable over time, and eventually I perceived it as being about 2 generations, became interesting new music that people like to hear. A second observation, this is more mine individually, as I looked in thinking of new music, newer music, this newer music period, what was the relationship between popular music and classical music, this new classical music? There's some well-known efforts to make the connection, to find a commonality, etc. But in general, I don't think it's been as successful as people had hoped. Turning to what I'm going to play a Prokofiev piece called Legend. It was written when he was fairly young. It's only semi-typical of the percussive, clashing style that's been commonly attributed to Prokofiev. Yet it's interesting, he eventually wrote a lot of music scores for opera and for ballet, and they were tremendously successful, more successful than his individual pieces and concertos and so on. And I think it's interesting that if you put his dissonances and so on in the context of support for a strong visual story, they suddenly seem to fit in well. This is a piano piece called Legend by Prokofiev. Can't see through fog glasses.
Hey everybody, Paul Young. I'm going to be doing the Poulon. I kind of went all French this semester. Chose the French foray in Poulon. I had the opportunity to sing in a choir off and on over the last 30 years with a very brilliant and beloved choir director. And he loved all things French, so that's why I chose these pieces. Poulon wrote this before he was 20, I believe. He was a conscript in the French army, so this was about 1918. And he snuck off to an elementary school and composed on piano at the school. So here we are, 100 years later, with conscripts in the news again. His style, he was known for kind of irreverent types of composition, so I hope to pick up on the irreverence here.
I love that piece. Did you guys notice his left hand? Bumpy, 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 all the way through without fail. It was the same 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 notes over and over and over again for the entire composition. That's a sort of a technique that was used a lot in this kind of music in the 20th century. It was a way of, it was kind of comforting, a way of creating a home base when maybe some of the notes didn't kind of speak to a home base. So it was called an ostinato pattern, if that matters anything. A ground bass or something that goes over and over and over again. And you'll listen out for that in the rest of this concert, in the 20th century compositions that you'll hear from the pianists and from the Harmony 4 students, because that was a very popular unifying factor. So thank you so much for that. We'll hear back from the pianists again later on in the program. And now we're going to turn our attention to the music majors. And a long time ago when I first got this job, I decided that I wanted to put an end to the concept that academic music was academic. And that it wasn't like making music. But that just is not true at all. Learning about the harmony and training your ear is extremely musical. It's very exciting, and they'll finally find that out. Harmony 4, is it kind of exciting?
Yeah.
By now? Yeah, sort of. But it's alive. It's not math, it's not sort of the intellect behind the music. It is living, breathing emotion. And so I wanted to make sure that from the get-go, my harmony musicianship students were always producing things that were musical and applying what they were learning in the classroom. So that's why the harmony musicianship students do these concerts every May. So we're going to now take a couple of 100 years step backwards and to about the 1700s when tonal music, which is the kind of music that most of us in Western cultures, Western tonal music we're used to listening to when we turn on the radio, classical music or popular music, is based on sort of a scale of 7 tones that we call tonal. So, and we call things being in the key of. So for instance, you know, those are 7 different notes, and if you compose a piece of music based on basically those 7 players, the C, the D, the E, the F, the G, the A, and the B, then you're called being in the key of C. And composers try very hard to make it obvious that we're in the key of C, which this is the starting note and ending note. So I always draw a diagram of a baseball diamond on the board when I teach harmony, and I say that harmony is just like baseball, and the basic idea, tonal harmony, Western tonal harmony, is basically like baseball, and the object of the game is to start at home plate, and the whole object is to leave home plate, do some stuff, and get back home. And that's exactly what tonal music does. It starts in a home base, and so that all the audience kind of feels safe and feels like we know where we are, and then we are taken on a journey, and then we get brought back home. And easier said than done, right? I mean, even in baseball, the scores are not 100 to 150, right? Of course, now, well, anyway, that's getting off the subject. But, so it's very hard to get all this accomplished. So what my Harmony 2 students are doing is learning all the intricacies involved in taking 7 notes and organizing them so it makes sense. And it seems like we're going on a journey. Something that all institutions do is have students learn how to write in what we call soprano, alto, tenor, bass style, which is 4 different voices, 4 different voice parts, if you've ever sung in a choir. 4 different voice parts, each singing a line of music. So the sopranos Harmony 2 students are welcome to come up to the stage at this point. And somebody could put down the lid of the piano. So we have the sopranos who are singing a note, and then they sing their next note, and they sing their next note, so they're singing a melodic line. Then we have the altos that have to do the same thing. They sing a melody too. They have a single note, and then they sing a single note the next thing. And the same thing with the tenors, and the same thing with the basses. So they're all singing an independent melodic line, but they're all singing it at the same time. And their own individual melodic lines have got to have integrity, they've got to sound musical, they have to make sense, they have to be singable. And yet, when they all get sung at the same time, the matching up of all the different notes have got to make a chord that makes sense. And then when they move to their next notes, that chord has to make sense and has to be a logical follower to the previous chord. It has to make its way around the bases, go off, tell a story, and come back home. It is incredibly difficult to do. There's a lot that goes into that, like the New York Times crossword puzzle on steroids. It's very, very difficult. They can all attest to that. So their final project, they had to compose a series of chords, which was really just a bunch of single lines that all have to match up together. A series of 8 chords, get to a certain spot and stop. Now compose a series of 8 more chords that make sense to continue on the journey around the baseball field, get back home, and at the end of 8 chords, they've got to be back home. And it has to make sense. And then, of course, on top of that, there's tons of rules. You can't do this, you can't do that, you have to do this, you have to do that. So it's very, very difficult. So I'm telling you that these things are going to be over with, each one of these compositions from my students are going to be over with in about 15 seconds each. But it took them a lot longer to compose them and to correct them. So have I done justice to how difficult it is to write a chorale? Okay. So these tiny little compositions are called chorales, as in choral, as in singing. And my students were asked, once they did this horrific feat, they were asked to make it a little more musical by doing something with them, like adding words to them so that we can sing it for our concert, and it's actually a piece of music, I'll bet, very short. Or perhaps they would like to take that key and flip it on its heels and maybe, make it major if it was minor, or minor if it was major. Just do something a little different with it and then just repeat the tune. So some did some things and some did some other things, and they're going to give you a sentence or two before you hear from each one of these composers on what they chose to do with their chorales.
Hi, my name is Cameron, and the chorale that I will be singing first is mine. It's called The Last of the Fallen Petals. I titled it that to kind of depict the time of the season where petals are falling after they bloom, and it's kind of bittersweet how they fall and practically die, but it also signifies the time of a new bloom for the coming year.
So this next piece is called Love/Liminal. I wrote it about unrequited love, so it's kind of sad. But it's also kind of short, so it's short and sad. So hopefully you enjoy it.
And just a note, if you can't understand the words, the mouths, etc., the words are on the back of the program for these various short chorales.
My name is David, and my composition is My Dream. I was working with the chord progressions on the piano, and the lyrics were an inspiration. Thank you.
My name is Louise Morin, and the title of my piece is Perseva. Perseva is Latin for keep on going. Its concert showcases personal musical expressions, but it's also the result of overcoming many things and perseverance. Despite everything, birds will keep on singing. It will be performed by Professor Tyson.
As you can tell, this is a guitar chorale, 4 guitars. The composition we'll hear next is by Reese. Reese, do you want to raise your hand? And he's a guitarist as well. And as you can see on your program, the title is 4 Guitars.
The next composition is Seasons, and it's composed by myself, Zohar. I chose the title Seasons because it's written in 2 different moods, one in A minor and one in C. Very nice, everyone. Great job on those chorales. One of the strongest bunch of chorales I've corrected in a very long time, so congratulations, everyone. So while my students are setting up, I'll just blab on a little bit about the musicianship class and what that is. This is also second semester. That was Harmony 2, which is second semester, first year Harmony. And we're about to hear some compositions by my musicianship 2 students, which is second semester musicianship. And musicianship is, harmony and musicianship are the 2 core subjects that all music majors have to or get to study. And it's, they're usually a 4 semester courses for both of those things. And they usually occupy 4-year music students on lower division classes. So by the time they finish 4 semesters of musicianship and 4 semesters of harmony, they're ready to start specializing and taking upper division music classes like counterpoint or what have you. But musicianship is one of those skill sets that's a little strange. It's very eclectic. It's a very hard course to do because I have to try to help them through developing a lot of different skills. And we all, as we all are, we have our strengths and weaknesses. And so it's my job to uncover their weaknesses, which is not so fun for them, but to help them to get stronger. And these kinds of activities that they have to do is things like looking at a rhythm and being able to tap it out without knowing what it sounds like or anybody showing them how to do it. Same thing with looking at a melody. They have to be able to hear it in their mind and be able to just sing it without having anybody show them how it goes. And then on the other side of the coin, I would play a melody and they would have to hear it and just know what it is and write it out. Or I would tap a rhythm, they'd have to do the same thing with the rhythm. So those are two of the skills. I also teach a lot of keyboard skills because every musician needs to understand this group of white and black because it's very convenient for doing anything that we do with music is to be able to put our hands down and play out chords or whatever we're thinking in our heads. So I teach them about that. And then they have to do all sorts of rubbing their stomachs and patting their heads at the same time and then changing. They have to multitask, which of course all musicians have to do. When we play with each other, we are multitasking. We have to stick with our own program, but we then have to listen to everybody else as well, which is hard to do when you're not used to it. So in musicianship too, we've been working a lot on singing because that is our own instrument that we get to take with us everywhere, and it's very close to our heads and our hearts. And so every musician, no matter what you play, needs to be able to, in some fashion, sing. And so again, Katie, our wonderful TA, who's a gorgeous singer, she's been instrumental, no, that's an anti-pun, instrumental in helping our students learn how to produce a tone with a little more comfortability. Anyway, so this particular canon that we're about to do, a canon is basically it's a melody that goes in a round, like row, row, row your boat. You know, you would sing row, row, row your boat, and then before you're done, somebody else starts and they sing row, row, row your boat, even though you haven't finished yet. So that's the basic idea of a canon. And I made everybody do that because it's confusing. And so they have to stick with their own part, but they also have to be listening to other people doing what they just finished singing, and they have to be singing something different. So it's a good way of multitasking and developing the ear. So you can see group one over here. Raise your hand. Yep, they're going to start, this particular tune is in 3 parts. So they're going to, well actually the whole group is going to sing the first part of this tune, just to give you guys an idea of what it sounds like. Then group 1 is going to take over and just the 3 of them are going to sing the beginning again. So they're going to sing part 1. They're going to go on to sing part 2, but then group 2 is going to come in with part 1. So they're going to sing part 1 while group 1 is on to part 2. And then, as that progresses, then group 3, which is Katie, she will start at the beginning when everybody else is progressing to part 2 and part 3. And on it goes in a loop like that, okay? So that's what you're going to hear in the singers. And then, if that wasn't enough pain and suffering for them, then I said, all right, now we have to think about what kinds of chords or harmonies would sound nice with this tune. So everybody had to put chords to it. And then we got everybody's chords together, and as a class, we looked at all the different ideas that they had, and we came up with a final choosing of chords to go along with this canon. And then Hasai volunteered to write a little piano accompaniment based on those chords that everybody came up with, and I will play that. So that's their creative composition. It's based on a tune by Franz Schubert. The second offering is another quiz that I had them do of singing a duet, similar to a canon, just 2 parts instead of more than 2 parts. They just had to do it individually instead of as a group with one other person, and that was their test. And then I said, okay, now let's have some fun with it. Let's get together in groups and take these duets and do stuff. So they came up with some really interesting ideas about what to do with this short little duet. I gave them some suggestions, like they could add a 3rd part, so it would be like a trio instead of a duet, or they could add an accompaniment to their duet, or they could write words for their duet, or they could write a new section and just compose something that would make sense after the duet, but be different from the duet, but would be a logical extension to it. And I told them to do a bunch of stuff, and whatever they wanted to pick and choose from or come up with their own ideas. So I'm going to let them describe what they did, and I will, before they begin, I will play the original test, the original duet, so that you can hear what that sounds like, and then what they did to it.
Hello? Hi again, I'm Cameron. This is Zahar and Hassan. So the piece that we'll be performing is called My Everything. So it's our interpretation of this old Latvian folk duet. And it's very simple and short, but we rearranged it so it could be played by 2 guitar parts and lead by vocals. I also added lyrics, we added a repeated section, and kind of different change-ups to expand the feeling of the song.
Did you introduce each other? Okay.
Monica is going to talk about this piece, but as she finishes, oh, are you finished? All right. I was gonna talk about manhandling the handle, but I'll let her do that.
So this piece is called Manhandling Handle, courtesy of Professor Jackson. Originally, it was a handle-shaped box, kind of like Nirvana, but we decided that kind of raised the bar too high. So today, we are setting the bar. Yeah. So my name is Monica. This is Kemi on piano and Reese on guitar. Kemi and Reese both did really nice harmonizations to this, and you will hear that here. And then originally I had a drum beat going when I presented my version of the duet, and Professor Jackson kind of said it's kind of banging. So hopefully it'll be banging to you guys as well.
I'm not sure I used that word, but I like your word better.
Reese, ready?
We just heard Manhandling Handle, and we're gonna have 10 minutes short break. Riches are right outside.
All right, welcome to the second half. Again, we are going to start the second half with a few more of our piano lit students. And there's a few changes in the program, if you want to look at the second half, if you have it in front of you. We have Billy starting, and then Sarah is Sarah Chang, by the way, C-H-A-N-G. And she will be playing, actually not Gretchaninoff, but she'll be playing Gymnopédie No. 1 by Eric Satie. And then after Sarah, this was my mistake, I just omitted one of our pianists that was going to play today, Teresa, and she will come up and she will talk to you about her piece and introduce herself. So Teresa Floyd will follow Sarah, and then it will be as written, Hisai. After Hisai plays, we have a special number. We are lucky enough to have Katie, our wonderful TA, who is a wonderful singer, to also be taking my piano lit class. So we had a built-in singer in our piano literature class, and so she teamed up with Hisai, and I've been instructing them on, or Hisai, on the art of collaboration we don't call it accompaniment anymore. We call it collaboration, because it indeed is what it is. So, so that you'll hear that at the end of the piano lit section with Hisai playing on the piano.
Hello everyone, I'm Billy. Today I'm going to play Lentil by Igor Stravinsky. And why I choose this piece, because this piece is special and I never played this style, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Chang and I'll be playing Gymnopedy No. 1 by Eric Satie. The term gymnopedy comes from the ancient Greek word for an annual festival similar to today's Olympics, but it actually sounds like quite the opposite. In fact, the instructions for playing the first gymnopedy translates to slow and painful, but I hope it's not painful for all of you to hear.
I'm Teresa Floyd. The piece I will be performing is by Emma Lou Deemer. It's called Clusters and Dots. It's an experimental piece, which basically means it's not a song. It's taking advantage of the properties of sound and the physical arrangement of a piano to see what you can do with music when you aren't completely limited to the tonal system. She has basically written, hey, look what I can do with the piano. And it's pretty darn cool.
Hi, my name is Lisa Master. I'll be playing for Bill Bartok's 16th in Bulgarian rhythm, number 1. It's from Microcosmos, it's 6. And I'd like to tell you a little story about how I chose this piece. At the beginning of this semester, I was asking Professor Jackson which piece to pick for this, this class.
Can you put it closer to my
I was asking Professor Jackson which piece to pick for this class, and I also mentioned that I wanted to try something new that I've never played before, a composer I've never played before. And I played a lot of Debussy and Ravel and other French composers from the 20th century, but I've never Bell Bartok. And then so Professor Jane recommended this Bulgarian rhythm. How about this? So I chose this number 1, and I heard a recording and I thought it was really cool. But once I looked at the score and started playing it, it made no sense to me. There is absolutely no connection to the previous kind of music that I played before, and the chords didn't make sense, the sequence of notes didn't make sense, and I was totally lost for a long time, and I just couldn't figure out what it was trying to do. And there was no key center, there was just no note that grabbed my attention. And but as I kept learning about it, I started noticing there's patterns in this piece, and it's not really about the tonal centers, which I was always very used to playing, from other composers, and almost second guessing, like when I'm playing, you can kind of estimate what's coming next from, the notes, the sequence of the notes. But in this piece, there was nothing like that, but there's the same rhythm that goes on, and the accents, and I hope you can figure out what is unifying this piece together. And as I kept playing, it really grew on me, and that's what Professor Jackson was predicting, that I would enjoy it more and more as I keep learning, and that's exactly what I hope you enjoy.
And I'm just gonna pipe in and say that the rhythm that is pervasive, again, an ostinato kind of a rhythm, is the Bulgarian rhythm. It's very asymmetrical and very cool. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Isn't that right? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So just listen to that. Count it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. As you listen to this piece. You don't need a mic, no.
Hi everyone. Hisai and I have, since we're both taking the piano literature class, Professor Jackson already told you, so we just have enjoyed getting together because I'm very bad at piano. So she's very good, so it's really a treat for me to have been able to experience the 4 semesters of piano at those 4 distinct periods of music through my preferred instrument, which is my voice. I'm just going to tell you that the text to this Aaron Copland piece, it was written while he was young, he was a student. The text are words translated from the Kafiristan. I don't know what the Kafiristan is, but the place Kafiristan is in Afghanistan and was inhabited by a people that observed a kind of ancient Hindu religion, so they were non-Muslims, as it became Afghanistan. The words are, since you love me and I love you, the rest matters not. I will cut grass in the fields, and you will sell it for beasts. I will sow maize in the fields, and you will sow it for people. Sorry, sell it for people. Since you love me, and I love you.
Since you
am just so taken with that piece and that performance. Just beautifully brilliant. I'm sorry. It's like, well, where's the next person? Actually, I think it was good that we had that little break. We needed that after that piece. That was just stunning. Thank you so much. Yes, we are now in the fourth quarter. I've changed sports, haven't I? We're in the last part of this concert, and we are now on to the graduating class, whom I will miss dearly.
I've had these students for 4 semesters now, and I don't want to let them go. I've seen them come from, being great to being even greater. So it's just been such an honor to teach them. So in Harmony 4, as I mentioned at the beginning, they're learning about the 20th century. They think about Harmony 2s, and we were back in the 1700s learning about baseball and learning about home plate and how important it is to always know where home plate is. And in the 20th century, sometimes they stuck with that, but they thought about making it clear where home plate was in many different ways. It doesn't have to do with all these rules and regulations that the Harmony 2 students are learning. Many ways of getting across a sense of home. And sometimes it was important to not give us a sense of home, and that was what a lot of composers were also interested in exploring. This idea that, I'll go back to the baseball analogy since I started it. Instead of having home plate being the all-important base, it was like every place that you go is equally important. And it doesn't really matter. There is no home. There is no journey. It's just maybe it's a journey, but they're all equal, and we can't really tell where home plate is pitch-wise. So they started thinking about other ways of making a sense of home. And that could be through the ostinato pattern that we were talking about earlier, that sort of insistent, in the Gymnopédie had it, and Paul's piece had it in it, and Hassai's piece had it in it, this recurring pattern that made us feel comfortable. So that was one way. There were many other ways. And they also explored, do I have to keep it to the 7 notes of that particular scale? How about other scales? How about other scales that have more notes or fewer notes in them, like a 5-note scale, which would be like the pentatonic scales. That's only 5 notes to that scale. Or what about some kind of cool scale like this? That's kind of weird, where every single space is equal distant to every single other space. So we can't really tell who's more important than others. They're all the same. So that was called the whole tone scale. And there's many other kinds of scales. So anyway, these harmony students learned all about this and many other things that composers of the 20th and 21st centuries were exploring. So I'm going to leave it up to them to talk about what they did with their particular pieces. These are all original compositions by my Harmony 4 students, and I think you're in for a real treat. They're all very different from each other. So, Andreas?
Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Andreas Garcia. The piece I wrote is called Search for Unity. In this piece, the 2 hands are doing kind of different things in terms of pitch. Left hand is doing a whole tone scale, which is one of the scales Professor Jackson just played, this one. The right hand is doing a different scale, sounds something like this. And when you put these together, in my piece, they clash sometimes, and sometimes they come together. And this piece is about searching for the unity in those scales and in other things.
Hello, my name is Mary Jo Gensimer, and the composition that I'll be playing tonight comes from a wellspring of just 5 notes. It's that pentatonic scale that Professor Jackson just referred to, and these are the notes. And from those 5 notes, you'll hear one musical pattern and 2 different variations. So. And then there's that unifying ostinato that we've been talking about, that unifying bass. I called the piece The Garden, and the reason I did that was because it simply feels like a relaxing stroll through in a garden, in a botanical garden. And then there's a bit of a playful disruption in the middle. To me, it felt like children breaking free and jumping and frolicking where they're not supposed to go and just having a bunch of fun. And I also call it the garden because the garden has hundreds of varieties of flowers that start from the tiniest inert seeds. And this composition comes from just 5 notes.
Hello guys, my name is Liam O'Sullivan, and for my final composition for Harmony 4, I decided to use 2 different tactics to compose. One is where I use the 7 conventional notes, but in non-conventional ways, and another one where I use those same 7 notes, but focused on 2 different tonal centers. So it sounds very dissonant at times, like this. And I titled it, How's Your Father? Because in life, with pandiatonicism, just using the notes in unconventional ways, it's really easy to feel lost. And I titled it How's Your Father? Because in life I often feel lost, and coming in and meeting with friends and family and loved ones and asking about their family and themselves, it really makes me feel at home and not lost anymore.
Timmy, and my little piece is called All the Same in Lowercase. I'm gonna play a little bit. It's a tune that had been lingering in my head for a while, and it goes. And that's the main idea. The tune is in modal harmony, which is quite different from what we hear usually. And usually what we hear and what we love is tonal harmony. And I'm just going to reiterate what Professor Jane already told. So the tonal harmony is where certain notes are emphasized and only one note gets to be called home. And in modal, and the one that I feature is called pendiatonic, that modal transitions into, is where home is either each note is home or there's no home. And I was still in the middle of my project, and I read this quote by Dr. Eudora Capaldo, who is former president of New England Anti-Vivisection Society, and the quote was, "It's all the same, really, the environment, the children, the women, civil rights, the animals, it's all about the same thing, empathy and doing what's better for everyone, and therefore all the same is my title." And in music too, I think what we seek is resonance, and the words felt resonant to me, and yeah, that's it. It's my piece.
The next offering is by Toby Frank, and he cannot be here this evening, so I asked him to write something that I could read on his behalf, and so I'm just going to read what he wrote, and I'll probably put some parenthetical stuff in there. Well, that's what he wrote. Well, the first part of the melody of this piece was originally something I plunked out on the piano, just testing the waters, and the more I played it, the more I liked it. It originally was meant to just be this melody over an ostinato, and now we know what that means, right? The same pattern over and over again. But I felt like I could make things more interesting, so I added another part. The second part, he wrote that it was in Dorian, which is one of the modes, so it's a different scale rather than the tonal scale. So in the second part, he's using different notes. And that part came a lot later, but I felt like it turned out just as well. So I'm happy with how things turned out. And it's titled, Where Are We? The words are in the back of the program, right? Yeah. You can find the lyrics in the back of the program. Which were written by Toby as well.
Where are we? I don't have nowhere to go. We're lost here. Where to go? Who knows the way? So where are we? I can't tell. Come help us for a spell. We're lost here. Need the path. Show us the way. And are we finally found the way out here? I think we've got it all figured out. Oh no, we're lost again. At least we're with a friend. I know we'll find our way out of this mess.
Alright. Hi everyone, my name is Keaton, and the composition I'm going to play for you tonight is called 4/5 of a ninth. And the reason I called it that is because the musical idea that's emphasized in this composition are intervals of a fourth, a fifth, and a ninth. Now, most music emphasizes the interval of a third, which sounds like this. I realize it's kind of quiet. That's not part of the composition. That's a little bit. No, I promise it's not. That's better. So, interval of third. If we stack multiple thirds on top of each other, we get chords. But if we were to stack fourths on top of each other, it wouldn't sound so much like a chord. So it sounds cool, but not quite like a chord. And we can do the same thing with fifths as well. So we get this sound that I like to call a perfect clash. And that is what I use throughout this entire composition. So without further ado, here it is.
4/5 of an eighth. Great. Our last offering for you tonight is a treat. This is our musicianship for students, plus one guest. And remember musicianship 2, they were learning how to sing together and to listen to melodies and write them down and listen to simple little chord progressions and write those down, what the chords were. But by the time we get into the second year musicianship, I open up the door a little bit for them so that they can have a little bit more fun. And they start to learn to listen to their own music that they like, popular music or rock, pop, whatever style, and see if they can listen to that and write it down by ear. And that's a lot harder than single line melodies. So they've been working on this for 2 semesters, and for their final capstone project, I let them choose a piece that they all voted on, what they wanted to transcribe. It's called transcribing something. And what they did is they all had to individually listen to, they chose George Harrison's My Sweet Lord, sorry. And they all had to listen to it and just try to figure out what the melody was, what the bass notes were, what the rhythms were, what the harmonies were, and they just drew it all out on a piece of paper like a score without ever having looked at the score. And then they all compared notes, and they decided whose was what they liked the best, and they, kept a little bit of hers and a little bit of his and a little bit of theirs, and they kind of mashed it up together, and then they arranged it for the ensemble that you see in front of you, thinking about what they had and who they could get. So they invited, we have a special guest, Andy, there in the middle. Raise your hand, Andy. And he's coming to us, he's in the vocal program, so he does a lot of the voice and choir classes. And he generously agreed, Mary Jo knows him and asked him to sing lead. So he's going to sing lead vocals and play guitar. And then we've got Liam on bass guitar. We have Monica on drums and Mary Jo on keyboard and backup vocals. And of course Keaton on the guitar and also backup vocals. So enjoy it. made Keaton really happy because that was his choice. And he was so jazzed when they picked it. That was great. Thank you guys so much. That was perfect. So that is the end of our program. I just wanted to take a moment before I let you go. We can't leave here without thanking some people that we couldn't have done this without, that's for sure. First, I'd like to thank Quinn Manelli. He's in the electronic music program, right? You're in the electronic music program? Yes. And he's the TA over there, and boy, he spent boatloads of hours helping and getting all these cables and microphones and all day yesterday and this afternoon. And thank you so much. It ran really smoothly. You were awesome. So thank you, Quinn. Also, special thanks to Keito Sato for the poster and program design for our concert tonight. And I'll get back to Katie in a second, but I do want to acknowledge that she did the program design and printed out the programs and got that all together, so big thank you to her for that. And then I just want to thank all of my students, because obviously this couldn't have worked without your hard work and your dedication to your education and how important music is to all of our lives. So thank you to you guys. Just keep on keeping on. It's a lifelong project, this music thing, and you know, it's all good, right? And you guys do great. So big round of applause to everybody. And then I just wanted to take a special moment to thank, a special thank you to Katie Litka, who is back there. Yeah. She was our TA this year, and I just couldn't have done what I did without her. She really supported the things that I did and helped me out so much. But most importantly, she helped out the students, and she was always there for them. She was such a positive influence and so caring and kind, and just helped them out. Always her door was open to them. So a huge thank you to Katie. We've got something for you if you'd like to come up here, because we cannot leave without acknowledging your contribution to this program. So thank you to Katie for all you've done. And I'd just like to thank all of you for coming. So I really appreciate it, and have a great night.
Before everyone leaves, we also wanted to give a gift to Professor Jackson, who worked super tirelessly to organize all of this and to teach all of us. So, there you go.
Have a great night.
Well, wait a minute, Harmony 4? So Harmony 4 wants to thank Professor Jackson for sticking with us through thick and thin. Our first semester was at the pandemic, right? And we didn't meet until this semester. And I mean, the technology, all the snafus you had to go through, oh my gosh, it was just amazing. And so we got you a little something because we like the pictures, the way that you nourished us and took care of us. And we like orchids because they last for a long time, and we don't want you to forget us. We just want you to know how much we appreciate you. It's, yeah, ineffable how much we appreciate you. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.